Hi, everyone. Today's podcast is it's going to be an attempt to be a very in the moment thing. So, rather than speaking about something specifically, I might just give myself the liberty to, okay, I'll go a little freelance with it or whatever, but it makes me really uncomfortable to use words inappropriately and, well, in the sense that, okay, I've already said that I disagree with a lot of the definitions that get used because of how circular they are, but that's also why I think that people end up in diseased situations. Is that a scary thought? I don't know. But it definitely doesn't make me want to use the words in a more liberal sense. And people will question me and ask, well, what are you talking about then? Because, at least to them, what they see from coming from me is that I'm just like spaced out trying to come up with ways to basically explain myself once something has occurred or transpired, as opposed to being proactive and really figuring out what it is that I want to say and how I want to say it. But I don't know, I'm just trying to be more centered on what other people consider me just explaining away myself. And so that's why usually I'm talking about something specifically, but now, okay, I'll just approach the camera more this way, where I'm not actually talking about anything. But is that less healthy or more healthy? Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm just trying to figure out how to communicate in ways that's not going to upset people and force them to try to correct me on things that I don't want to do. I don't want to have those mentalities. So there has to be some type of compromise. I believe that the highest one, most above us all, God, that, well, I wouldn't be placed into a world of perpetual and never-ending torment. But when I'm out speaking to people as opposed to just speaking on my own, it's not that there's a loss of access to information coming from my side from not paying attention, but so then why do objects go missing and topics and ideas get dropped? Because where I've been coming at that from is a functional standpoint, and I'm seeing you and talking to you, yet this whole time I see so much dysfunction in your body. I feel it now. I feel so dragged down by having to hold myself back whenever it is that I want to say something that's more appropriate, that is more appropriately timed, at a time when I wanted to say it, not when other people suggest that I should have said it. I don't want to think in those terms, but that is the only way that they'll listen. I won't be heard if I don't subscribe and do the thing. Let me just break away and talk about something that I'm caught between politics and spirituality. Well, let's go with spirituality because that one's a little bit more open. But I will bridge into politics because I do believe that at the center of politics lies people's beliefs, people's inherent what they want to do and what they're going to act upon. And that's a very selfish thing. So in politics, what are people doing other than being maximally selfish, but purporting to want to be helping others? Otherwise, why would they be in those positions? Well, we can look at the legislature and all that, but in action, how it's done, what groups of people are they helping? What groups of individuals is it that they go reach out to grab and say, I'm here for you. This is why you elected me. This is why I'm doing my job, right? But I have a problem with it. I have a problem with career politicians. So we can start with religion. We can start with how spirituality is practiced. And it's all these religious groups. I don't have anything against, okay, specifically something like Scientology. Yes, I have problems with it. The Mormon church, they're much nicer people than I am. I've never argued with a Mormon. I did, however, have an experience where I was trying to talk to this kid about, because he was, oh man, okay. People purport that they believe in God, but then the things they do, it's not about God. So I felt bad telling this kid, do you want to be a gang member like your brother, or do you want a family? Because you can't do both. It's not going to happen. And he cried and told me all these bad things, but I didn't feel personally offended because it was a kid. But he was Mormon. But then I look at his brother, and his brother's the kindest, most understanding person that's ever existed. And I was like, they just want to give him what his brother has. And there were more other Mormons at that place where I was working with children. So that's kind of my past as far as that goes. But seeing the effects of spirituality in practice, and I have to put children in it because my conceptual understanding of what spirituality is actually executed differently in, for example, if you read the text versus if somebody reads the text to you, and then if you want to start a discussion on that, then it's going to be different than what's on the books, right? And I'm seriously not trying to do circular reasoning here, but that's my take on what spirituality is that you just apply this universality that God speaks to you in your body, but somehow you are also human and you're limited, but like God has the like heaven or afterlife or whatever essential like non-physical quality that is part of every religion, but that's the institutional side of spirituality. So when, for example, I encounter spirituality in my practice as a nurse, it's a very different, because I feel like adults, they're a little bit more set in their ways, right? They're gonna be, you could either regard it as wise and knowledgeable and understanding, or maybe understanding isn't part of it and they're just hateful, but doesn't mean that they don't have wisdom, right? So to me when I see spirituality that bridges different cultural groups together. Like, I'm thinking through space and across space through time. Because why would somebody even need spirituality if they are connected with God? Wouldn't it be that putting the word spirituality already removes an individual from God? That is already, you don't see yourself as one, right? And I do have this sort of equivalence in my mind between a level of psychosis and a state of spiritual awareness. Because if you want to say that you are somewhere in a different space or time, then that's dishonest, because we're both in this space and time, yet we both know that you have been in the past and you will be in the future. So if God exists, those aren't really disconnected, it's just rather a form of communication. So I think spirituality to me has never been so much about strength and finding that within me and blah blah whatever. My perspective of God is, there's something that some people purport is physically outside of this realm of existence, but it exists and has representations here. So I don't want to bash too much on the definitions of things, because I get upset and I'm trying to be calm. So spirituality has its place as a personal connection to feel the universe. And God is the universe. So when just to finish up the thought about, like, I was seeing a patient and her birds were the topic of conversation. And she just kept placing the bird in different locations, but like saying things about her house and the reasoning behind why the bird is in the location it's in, and like it's in the cage and the breeze, so the air by the window, away from the window. Like, there's so much that could be said about just one specific object, right? But that patient, when I met her, was talking about religion and God and spirituality, and just because she's a very devout Mormon. So to me, I see her two sons and how they came up to be, and they seem like good, nice people. Kind of, they seem angry at her a little bit all the time. But when I talk to them, I'm like, I don't hear the difference between how she's talking to me and how you're talking to me. So if you're angry at her, I don't know, she's got health issues. Like, this is a whole pattern I don't want to follow. So I have to believe within myself, at the very least, that whatever all that is, it's truth. It's truth to me, and in the general sense of what other people can't see, because they're refusing to acknowledge that my lack of ability to stay in one spot is the defiance that's telling me don't get their diseases, right? So I let me drink. So I have some lemonade over here. By the way, I like mix. I mix the lime with sugar, and then I pour a little bit of water out from the water bottle, and then I put the mixture in. Then I put it in the fridge. I like mix it so that the sugar incorporates, and then I put it in the fridge. And then on top of that, I have this ice cup, basically. Like the bottom is just a thick layer of an amalgamation of all the drinks that I drink, which has only been Gatorade, blue Gatorade, a cucumber lime Gatorade, and lemonade. So it tastes pretty good. Let me drink some. And I love pulp. So there's a lot of pulp. I like to cut the pulp off the lime, but then once the pulp touches the ice, it kind of gets stuck onto the ice, and so there's just a lot of pulp down there. But I like it, it's good. But that also makes me upset that when I'm drinking, I'm not getting pulp. So it's like give and take. I gotta wait to finish this, or for it to melt enough that it'll just unstick. But like if I swish it like this, yeah, I got some pulp everywhere. Good pulp. So now let's move to politics. Because I feel like, at least here in America, we've got the Democrats and the Republicans. Everybody else is regarded as independent, or I don't know. It's a two-party system. People want to deny that it's a two-party system, but really, there's never... this is what... Okay. I remember why I didn't... Okay. Well, I did... Okay, I did want to... Okay. I don't know if I'm contradicting myself at this point, but I don't care. Politics. So... just the way that it's done here in America, I feel like it's very liberal as a system compared to what I've learned about other countries. For example, communist countries, or just countries where, like, I'm sure the UK is pretty liberal too, but I'm also just basing that off of remembering, well, there was, like, people wanting the Brexit, which is the British exit of the European Union, and I'm like, wait, well, I thought that the European Union was kind of like a negotiator and like mediator within Europe to like make things fair for everyone, but then people were like, no, Brexit is like MAGA, and I'm like, wait, okay, wait, so does that mean that it's like drain the swamp? It's like they believe that the higher ups in the European area are basically working against the common interest of the people, and I'm like, well, that's fair, but I didn't take it too far because I'm not in Europe, I'm not in UK, so they have parliament or something. I'm like, from what I know of anything overseas about like European involvement is like now we're talking like international organizations like NATO, or like what's the other one? Like United Nations and stuff like that. But I don't know. That's a whole nother governance structure that I'm like, who's giving these people power? Who's deciding that? Okay, yeah, let's just fund this. Now it's part of the government. Now every government is going to donate money to these governments, and we're just going to unite and blah, blah, blah. I'm sure I could be doing my history with, like, the Geneva Convention and, like, just starting and seeing what happened in World War II and what caused, like, the whole nuclear shutdown of, like, why countries aren't allowed to have that kind of stuff. You're looking at the example right now. Not that and I can't even say that I believe that most of those things are true, because seemed just for political implementation, but still, I wonder, where does the funding come from? Like, we do get taxed. Um, and I don't know how much it costs to operate the government, but I can just imagine, if I think about every single workplace that I've been to and how much corruption there is in those places, um, then I guess I can I can see that there's a lot of things that get done in ways that aren't good, like wasteful, and just seeing receipts of things that aren't there. And it's like somebody pocketed something. I don't know who, but there's transactions, there's receipts, there was money, I assume, because this business is operating and the accounts, I don't run them, I don't run the financial parts of every company, but I'm just like, I do definitely see harassment in the workplace that shouldn't happen. And does that reflect on me? Does it then become who I am because I'm being 100% honest in these work environments about, well, they're doing it, so I'm not saying it's okay for me to do it, but as far as um, what gets accepted, it's like, yeah, I can't report any of this. I can't because it's going to be ignored anyway. And when I do report things, when I have reported them, I don't know if they got taken care of because I heard from another source that it did. Because I'm not going to sit there and harp on somebody, did this get fixed, did this get fixed, did this get fixed? No. I said it the one time that I noticed it. I did my whole report, sent it your way. I did what I had to. So I don't know about how certain people want to take accountability for their actions. I feel like systemically we're just too far gone. We are in a place where the governments encourage the people down to the lowest level. Yeah, practice your business in whatever ways you don't get caught or don't get in trouble over. I I don't like that this is the world that I live in. Like, just because I didn't say something the right way, it's not going to be regarded as true. But whose loss is it in the end if it did turn out to be true? Everyone. Because I was reporting on something that was happening around things that were affecting people. So, I don't know. Um, I think of the worst things, I guess. Is that my fault? That everywhere I go, I hear all these messed up things about things that are irrelevant. I keep hearing so many things that are irrelevant, and I don't need to hear it. But again, I look at the mandates. I look at the what are all these politicians doing for us anyway? When I look at the cost of living and I look at minimum wage and I look at the cost of houses having it's not even fair to say, like, I think probably 600% increase in the price of housing in my lifetime. And when was I aware of the price of housing? Because I'm speaking from personal experience. That's probably when I was like 8. I'm thinking that's when I started looking at the price of houses. Like, just mentally calculating, like, oh my god, that's a lot of money, but my dad's able to afford a house. And then, like, the housing crisis happens, and then, oh, I'm homeless. My dad couldn't afford a house. But then I think about, I want to buy a house. I wish I was in my dad's situation. How could he lose that house? Well, I know how he lost that house, but I'm just thinking how unfair it is that back in those days, it was so much easier. And these are the people who basically, okay, a lot of the people who enabled that history 20 years later, they're probably retired. They probably, a lot of them are dead that were keeping that system together, right? Not maybe not a lot of them, but maybe a good portion of them, because it's 20 years. Like, I'm expecting, if you're 40, 45, you're going to retire around 60, 65. If you were working around 50 to 60, because some people do work in their 60s, especially people at the governance levels, they are probably gravely ill or not that healthy or dead, because 50, 60 is 70, 80, and I don't know. I personally do not know that many people that live that long. And maybe it's because I work in the medical field, but I feel like I feel like life expectancy is not that great, especially if you work in a high stress environment, especially if you work kind of in here there's like a clash of two worlds, because if you work in politics, I believe personally most of your job is to lie, and that does numbers to the body. If you're going to be indirect about the truth, it's going to hurt you. That's all I have to say about that specifically. But so going back to the cost of everything, it's unfair. It's unfair for people. How can the price of soda double in 5 years and nobody bats an eyelid about the fact that minimum wage has stayed the same for 5 years? That's ridiculous. How come the price of all the products in the stores are going up? All the companies say, oh, well, if we are going to pay our employees more than the price of the products, we all need to share the cost. It's not like the company isn't whatever, like, paying their part into their own development as a company and blah blah blah, but like, and reinvesting its own money. But did the dollar menu have to disappear from McDonald's? Just for, I mean, like, you used to be able to get a soda for $1. Now it's $3 something, $4, $5. I actually don't know. The price is probably based on the size that you get. But the large was $1 when I was in high school. Where did that go? You could get a wrap for $1. You could get a burger for $1. What, like fries at Jack in the Box used to be like $1 for small fries. Now it's like $2 or $3. That's ridiculous. And this is just the last 5 years. What? Where? And okay, if we want to talk about healthy food, vegetables, it used to be probably like 60 cents for a pound of tomatoes, 79 cents if you're really, if you're going to get the Roma tomatoes that are a little bit bigger. Now it's $1 a pound in the last 5 years. I don't understand this. You want to talk about semi-healthy food, like meat. What, a pound of, chicken is probably the cheapest right now. You could get, I don't even count the pounds in chicken because it's a good deal. Like, you just get like a big, like, it'll be, the chicken that I get, it's usually the leg part, or I don't even know what part I get. I think it's the leg part. But it's like if you cut the chicken and then left the breast and the wing. So yeah, the leg part. And like 4 of those cost probably like $6. That's super cheap. But like, if you want some steak to get that same amount of weight of steak, you're probably looking at like $20, $30, $40. Why? Because steak is considered high ticket item, and it always has been. It's always been that way, but I know it hasn't been 20, 30, $40 for that same weight of steak than for chicken. So I don't really have, because when I was a kid, I wasn't looking at the price of meat. I was actually turned off by meat. I was trying to be vegan or vegetarian because I'm like, how are you torturing these animals and it's okay? How is that fine? I can't eat, like, I can't even think about it. Like, I can't process that this is ailment to me. That feels so evil. And largely, I would say that I'm still in that position, except with the type of consumption that I'm talking about. So, you know, how do I walk away from that? How do I back away from that? I'm gonna let that sit there. um, so essentially, I feel like, okay, yeah, I'm just a headless chicken right now, talking. Like, how is that even possible? Not not one person, when I talk to them face to face, will show the disrespect once I correct them on it. And once I've corrected enough, then they just won't deal with me. And I'm like, fine. Keep all of the POOP that you want, shove it down your throat, and keep it for yourself. If that's what you want, if that's what the world is to you, that's not what it is to me. I'm about creation. I'm not about trying to control people. I'm about, let's bring things into existence. Let's do all of the great things that we can, instead of sitting there harping at people, trying to perpetuate a dumb system that somebody else came up with. And I think that's it for today. I can keep going. I can keep talking about things, but I don't have an actual discussion for today. I genuinely hope that I'm completely wrong about everything, or that I'll somehow transition into a more peaceful and lovely existence where I can accept that I'm just in a messed up world that I completely disagree with, and I'll be accepted in it and not hated at every turn. But it seems like it's kind of doing just that last part. So, anyway, 3, 2, 1, bye.